Welcome in, everybody. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, and this is SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley. And oh my goodness, you are in for an amazing show today. Prepare to be inspired, touched, impressed, and motivated to action. But first, let me remind you, for those who don't know who we are, our show Eye on the Valley is brought to you by SCVI and iLead Schools. We are a network of charter schools with campuses in Castaic, Agua Dulce, Lancaster. We've got a fully accredited online school. We've got a burgeoning home study program called iLead Exploration. In fact, you're going to meet one of the amazing learners from iLead Exploration in just a minute. But for information on any of our campuses, our virtual schools, our hybrid programs, any kind of educational format that your child needs, all free of charge, remember, we are a free public charter school system. Visit us at iLeadschools.org for more information on any of our campuses. Again, iLeadschools.org. So yeah, we keep our eye on education here in Santa Clarita and across the nation, but like our show says, we keep our eye on the valley as well, bringing you everything that you need to know about what's what right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. So yeah, let's go ahead and get right to it today. If you're a regular listener, you know I typically take the first few seconds of the show to goof off a little bit, but I'm not goofing around today. We want to get right to my first guest. Actually, both of my guests today are absolutely fascinating, and I want to get right to it. And then the second thing is the first topic that we're going to be discussing this morning is absolutely no joke, and so I don't want to bring any levity to the show. My first guest this morning is Zoya Kalinsky. Recently, she traveled to New York to address the delegates of the United Nations. She spoke passionately to the delegates from the floor to implore them to do everything they can to combat violence against women and girls. You'll hear her speech and all she's doing to protect women around the world. Oh, and did I mention she's 12 years old? Yeah. That's right. She spent her Thanksgiving break urging the UN to take action. And later on in the show, my second guest, Dr. Charisse Moore. She is the director of Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley, and she'll be here in hour number 2. Zonta International is a leading global organization of professionals empowering women worldwide through service and advocacy. And Dr. Moore, well, gosh, if you don't know what Dr. Moore, she is an incredible woman and an amazing leader here in the Santa Clarita Valley and throughout the region herself. And okay, if you do like a little bit of the goofing off, we will make sure that we save some space for Big T at the end of the show. He'll be swinging by with a little bit of trivia and goofiness, you know Big T. So yeah, it's going to be an incredible show, and I want to get right to it. My first guest today, as I said, is Zoya Kalinsky. She was born in New York and raised here in Los Angeles. Already at 12 years old, she speaks English, Russian, and French. And boy, does she speak. In fact, she's already building quite a profile as an inspirational speaker. In just a few minutes, you'll have the opportunity to hear the speech that she recently made on the floor of the UN. Zoya is passionate about women's rights and safety and is all about helping young girls develop the confidence they need to be able to stand up for themselves, particularly when no one else is around to stand up for them. She's scuba certified and absolutely loves the water. She's a world traveler and a proud museum nerd, having visited more than 50 museums in over 20 countries. She's a budding entrepreneur who currently runs 2 businesses. And in her spare time, because, you know, when you've got a resume like that, you've got lots of spare time, I'm sure, she loves to compose music on the piano, paint, and read. So, yeah, good morning and welcome to Eye on the Valley.
Good morning, Matt. Thank you so much. So, like you said already, my name is Zoya Kalinsky. I was born in New York. I was raised here since I was 2 years old, and I'd like to give a couple of thanks out to a couple of people. Number one, my amazing parents. I'd also like to thank my amazing EF, Roxana Yanko. She's the most amazing coordinator out there. I'd also like to thank everyone at UN Women, as well as Calliope Mangaru, who made my speech possible, along with everyone at UN Women team, Inez, Yelise, Lizette, Irene. Also, Public Foundation, who's helped me very much with everything, such as Sergio, Carrie, Stephen, Mariama Kamara, Curtis, my best friend Curtis and Abhishek, my friends and family. And thank you so much, Matt. Thank you.
Absolutely. It sounds like you've got a great support network that has helped you really exploit the amazing talents that you have. So you mentioned, Roxy, your EF, and I do need to mention EF is short for Educational Facilitator, and that's what we call the teachers that support the learners in our homeschool program. You're a student at iLead Exploration. How long have you been with iLead Exploration?
So I've been with iLead around 4 years already, and I can say that these have been the best 4 years of my life.
Wow. So, as I mentioned, you recently had this amazing opportunity to go to the United Nations and address the delegates and really the world, because it was live streamed as well on this topic that you're very, very passionate about. We do have a clip, but before we play that, tell us about the experience. Who contacted you? How did this amazing opportunity come about?
Well, my father works at with a foundation that works very closely with Public Foundation.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to meet a former ambassador, His Excellency Sergio Fernandez de Cordova, who is the head of Public Foundation and founder. And he heard out a speech that I wrote for UN Women just a couple of weeks prior.
Okay.
And he loved it, and he thought it'd be really great for me to get in contact with UN Women. So he got me in contact with them and its team. I had a lot of interviews with them, which were pretty stressful just because I wasn't really prepared for them, because it happened so fast.
Sure.
But after that, they gave me the agenda with me speaking at the ECOSOC chamber along with the president of the 78th General Assembly, Dennis Francis, the head of UN Women, and Under Secretary General, and that was the best day of my life.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine. How exciting. Now, I've actually seen your speech several times. Gives me goosebumps every time. We've got a clip, not a clip, we've got the speech in its entirety. It's about 3 minutes long. We're going to go ahead and play it now.
Excellencies, esteemed delegates, friends, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the prevention of violence against women and girls. My name is Zoya Kalinsky, and I'm 12. I'm here to ask for investment in stopping the cycle of violence before it begins, by turning attention to the 1 in 3 girls who suffer from physical, psychological, or sexual violence in schools. Unfortunately, I experienced this firsthand. Bullied for my Tourette syndrome, I was stabbed with pencils, locked in closets, dragged from classrooms, and humiliated repeatedly when my tics were present. But do you know what a young girl feels when she's being attacked in school? It is an overpowering darkness that can consume a girl's world, leaving a shattered spirit and a dagger in the heart of her identity. It is a merciless act that drowns self-love, worth, and confidence, replacing it with self-doubt, shame, and fear. Luckily, these actions did not break me, rather motivated me to learn about the long-term impacts of bullying and what I can do to prevent this from happening to other young girls globally. What I learned is that the bullying epidemic creates a cycle of violence that not only empowers abusers, but also leaves victims traumatized from a very young age. According to a study by the University of Washington, 97% of abusers said they were also victims of bullying. 97%. These numbers mean that abusers are not born, they are made. I was a victim, but I had support, and unfortunately, not every girl does. That is why I'm here to demand action to stop the abuse that takes place in our schools and on the playground. We need large-scale investments in prevention from both the public and private sector, and to go further in teaching and educating teachers on handling the bullied abuser dynamic. I'm only 12, but while I lack experience, I do not lack the ability to have my voice heard on behalf of all of the little girls who have been victims. And while our collective voice today may be small, it will only grow louder with time. Everyone, look at me, and please remember, abuse ignores age, and long-term change starts with stopping the cycle of violence before it begins. And that starts with those that look like me, not those that look like you. Thank you.
Absolutely incredible. Zoya, congratulations. And like I said, every time I hear it, it gives me chills. Now, I notice that you and your parents who are here in the studio with us this morning are all coordinating today. You're all wearing orange. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So, orange is actually the color representing UN Women just because it represents hope and a brighter future for women and girls in the world and globally.
And that's something that's incredibly close to you. I want to ask a little bit about your experience, where this passion and your drive came from. You mentioned in your speech you'd been bullied, especially regarding Tourette syndrome. Tell us about your experience being bullied.
Well, at the age of 5, I developed a Tourette syndrome, which is a motor and verbal tic disorder. And after that, I was seen as different and an outsider, and I've been bullied ever since. One of the biggest reasons that I'm with iLead is because I was bullied in school, and it was one of those times where there's not much you can do because a lot of the teachers didn't really understand the issue. They thought, oh, well, they're just children. They're playing. Sometimes they're mean to each other. Sometimes they're nice. And that was a big part of why I want to bring attention to the fact that we need to educate the teachers, too, because the teachers are a big part of the problem as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And not okay. You can't just allow someone to be bullied, to suffer, and say, well, that's what kids do. So based on that, you kind of handled it in two beautiful ways. You advocated for yourself, and your parents moved you into iLead Exploration, a little bit safer of a format, but then you also developed this, so far, kind of lifelong drive to support others who are also suffering violence and harm. There were some pretty crazy statistics that you talked about. Did you put a lot of research into your speech? What went into the development of that?
So most of my statistics actually came from UN Women's website.
Okay.
But a lot of the details, information actually came from my own experience. So about the bullies are made, not born. That's all me because I, as a survivor, as someone who's experienced it, I understood a lot more than someone who hasn't experienced it.
Well, yeah, sure. So what did that feel like growing up? I mean, you're dealing with this new diagnosis at 5 years old of Tourette syndrome, and I'm sure you were struggling to kind of figure that out on your own as well, but then also suffering, this abuse from your classmates and others. What were you going through as, at the time, a very little girl?
Well, to be honest, it was one of the worst feelings because, they would stab me with pencils. Like I said, they would drag me out of classrooms. They would throw me down the stairs. They would
my goodness,
punch me. They would pinch me. They would humiliate me repeatedly. But to be honest, to this day, it's pretty rarely now that I'm not in a group of kids. But I still am bullied sometimes because a lot of kids do not understand what Tourette syndrome is, and that I'm different, and that's why kids don't like different.
Sure. Gosh, so we're not talking about, your typical being picked on in classroom. This was some pretty extreme violence that you suffered. I want to ask your parents really quickly, Mom, Dad, what was that like for you? Again, dealing with the same thing of having this diagnosis that you're trying to figure out and how best to support and raise your daughter that's dealing with something unexpected, but then also to suffer such extreme violence at the hands of her classmates. What was that like?
In short, painful. When you have, as any parent, with a child, seeing them suffer, seeing them in pain, obviously is not something that anybody should go through. But I think the bigger issue is when with a child, who's 5 and 6, 7 years old, the communication, it's very, very different.
Yes.
So you don't really understand, right? And they come home crying, and you talk to the teachers. And as the Tourette syndrome, became more present, when you had teachers saying, "Sit still," right? And as most people will know, Tourette syndrome is, involuntary motor and verbal tics, and telling somebody who has, a disorder that makes them actually tick, telling them to sit still is not necessarily the right strategy. So part of this was, watching her, go through this, and she's obviously, precocious and, also intelligent.
Sure.
It was both the social and the mental health as well as the educational issues, became, I think, a big reason why we were looking for other solutions.
Sure, so many different layers of struggle for your daughter, and I've got 2 kids of my own, and I know it doesn't matter what else is going on in the world, everything can be coming up roses, but if your kid's not doing well, then everything is kind of a dark cloud. And so kudos to the 2 of you for working so hard to make sure that she's supported and getting everything that she needs. Now, Zoya, this opportunity to speak at the UN, it's not just a one-off for you, and I know that you're building toward a life of advocacy. I want to talk a little bit more about that. We do need to take a quick commercial break. When we get back, we'll have more with Zoya. Zoya Kalinsky joins me this morning. She's an author, composer, entrepreneur, 7th grader at iLead Exploration, and an inspirational speaker who, as I said, recently addressed the United Nations, urging them to put their full weight behind combating violence against women and girls. More with this amazing young lady right after this. I'm Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. And welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, your host, and you are listening to SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley. My guest this morning is Zoya Kalinsky, who you just heard from in the last break. She's a 7th grader at iLead Exploration and is already making her profound impact on the world, recently speaking to the United Nations, urging them to step up and put an end to violence against women and girls. Zoya, I want to ask you this first. You, in preparation for your speech, you made yourself quite the expert in violence against women and girls. I understand you researched quite a few statistics. Can you share some of those with our listeners?
Sure, of course. Well, one of the statistics that I stated in my speech was that 97% of those abusers were once bullied in their childhood. And that's, I think, a very important statistic because, like I said in my speech, that means that abusers are not born, they're made. And
Right.
if we can take that, we would take that statistic and basically take those kids that are bullied and make it that they're not victims anymore. It
Sure.
would decrease bullying by a very, very grand percent.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's not about, it is about treating and helping out the one that's being harmed, but then also it's that domino effect, right?
Yes,
that,
that's right.
that they're much less likely to harm others. What are some of the other stats you have?
Another very important one is 1 in 3 women will be a victim of abuse at some point of their
1
life.
in 3.
1 in 3 women, and that, I think, is the most important statistic in violence against women and girls, because it shows that every woman has a 33% chance
Right.
of being abused or a victim of violence. Another one is 5 women are killed every hour by a family member, a partner, someone in their family, and that is just awful, I think.
I'm sorry, that just is a little breathtaking. It leaves me speechless. 5 women every hour
yes,
are
that's
killed by a family member, a partner, someone who's supposed to be there
Loved one.
supporting them. Yeah. Gosh, incredible. Anything else that you wanted to share?
Another one, this isn't quite a statistic, but girls in particular, start abusing drugs a lot more probability, because they need to escape the feeling
Sure.
of being bullied. They need to escape the fact that they're different, they're being bullied,
So it's the problem is just multifaceted
that's
and
right.
leads to the abusers lead to more abusers. The abused turn oftentimes to
Yeah.
self-medication and
Oh yes,
and abuse.
the
Gosh.
probability of self-harm, suicide, girls in particular that are bullied in school, it decreases their worth ethic. It makes them want to skip school. It makes them want to commit suicide and self-harm, and that's awful because self-harm, suicide, teenage pregnancy, that's one of the most number 3 most leading causes of death in girls.
Such tragic results, and I think you've touched on some of the solutions that are not complex or difficult. You're talking about increasing awareness,
Yes.
educating teachers and other adults, and then the platform that is particularly close to your heart, empowering girls, to stand up and say, this is not okay. You are not allowed to do this to me.
That's right.
And we're talking about, if we can do that, eliminating so many future problems. And then we could talk about incarceration, broken homes, things like that are all manifold kind of into that. Last break, we did hear your speech, and again, your dad and I were talking about at the break. Every time we hear it, both of us are incredibly moved.
Thank you.
Mr. Zelinsky, I can't imagine how moved you and your wife are every time you hear it. So what are some of the responses you've had from the speech? Did you get any feedback from the delegates or anything like that?
Well, for sure, most of the people there, they were very sorry for what I had to endure when I was younger,
Sure.
which is like empathy. It felt really, really warm to my heart. They wanted to give me a better platform, a foundation. They wanted to help me increase and amplify my voice, to speak more on ending violence against women and girls. Well, and of course I can't say that a lot of them wanted to have selfies with me and take me to dinner, but obviously don't want to brag.
Well, no, but it is, you've got this kind of magnetic personality.
Thank you.
And the platform that you bring forward is quite inspirational. And
Thank you.
it's attractive. Folks want to be close to greatness, I suppose. So this isn't a one-off speech, something that you're going to reflect on. Yeah, I did that one time. This is something that you're going to continue to develop moving forward. What are your plans in continuing the work?
So my plans are, I want to continue working with UN Women and the United Nations and Public Foundation, obviously. But I don't want to just work with UN Women. I want to expand my borders and work with different foundations and non-profits and different companies, but We Are Family Foundation is definitely on the list for me, along with a bunch of other ones, but for sure continuing this path of speaking and bringing on change. And obviously one of my dream is to become an ambassador to the United Nations.
Wow.
It's my lifelong dream, and I definitely hope that sooner or later it will be fulfilled.
Well, you're well on your way, and we can't forget the fact that you're 12. You're in 7th grade. You've got schoolwork to do, which oftentimes for most 12th graders is quite a bit. But you're handling all these different things that you're doing in addition to your coursework. Do you incorporate the two at all? Do they ever cross over, your advocacy and your schoolwork?
Yes, for sure. So most of my work that I do, like with the United Nations, is usually speeches, research, and
I see.
A lot of my speeches that I've sent to my coordinator are for English. And but I also have a speech on climate change.
Okay.
That I haven't sent it yet because it's not quite ready yet. But when it is, I will promise you that will be the next time that we will be speaking here.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward to that. I do want to talk to your parents as well, Lawrence and Natalia. So we talked about the struggle that your daughter went through as she was growing up in public schools and the abuse that she suffered at the hands of her classmates. And so you were looking for, well, gosh, first and foremost, a place that she would be safe, where she could learn and be safe, and somewhere where she can be nurtured and learn and be safe. Gosh, you would think that would be the minimum that our schools could provide. But they weren't able to do that for your daughter. Can you talk a little bit about the journey and how you found iLead Exploration and what that has meant in the lives of your family?
So when we decided to take Zoya completely out of the schooling system, in fact, she was going to private schools, not public.
Okay.
We explored different opportunities, it was pre-COVID, so there were a lot of different homeschooling options.
Okay.
And we found that iLead was actually a perfect fit for us because it had a really good structure that we could follow, a good curriculum, but at the same time, it would allow us to sort of explore other things. And because we travel a lot,
Sure.
also to allow us to travel and do sort of a world education. So in fact, what is one of the most amazing things is that, yes, we have the curriculum, but we also supplement with a lot of different subjects. And I'm sure Zoya would actually love to share what subjects and some of her
course,
favorite
yes.
ones.
Yeah, absolutely, and so we'll talk about that. I think that's great, and I know a lot of our families do come to exploration because of the flexibility that it provides. And so while you're traveling, oh gosh, on the road so that your daughter can speak at the UN, she's still able to accomplish her schoolwork and get everything done that she needs to get done?
Yeah, it's a very interesting balancing act. Right?
Okay.
Obviously, the education, the core classes, she probably does a little bit more work than your average student.
Okay.
In terms of the times.
Sure.
But because again, she wouldn't be able to do all the things that she's doing with United Nations if she doesn't do her classwork. So it's very important for us to maintain all of the standards that you would expect from a typical seventh grade education.
Right.
But also be able to supplement that with some of the world education that we believe is the best for her.
Right, and I'm sure it's a balancing act for your own lives. You've got responsibilities and things you need to take care of as you're educating your daughter and traveling and supporting her in her dream. So, Zoya, tell me a bit about what it looks like, right? So most folks imagine, okay, a seventh grader gets up in the morning, grabs their backpack, goes to school, and then they're in school doing whatever they do, and then they come home. What's a day in the life or maybe a week in the life of an iLead exploration learner? I don't say typical because I know there's so many different experiences out there. We've got folks training for the Olympics and actors and yourself, of course. So what does your kind of school week or school day look like?
Well, typically I wake up at 6 in the morning because I actually have a job.
Okay.
In my building. I walk dogs and cats, and I also I help a woman who's disabled.
Okay.
So I help her with groceries. I help her with getting around in my building. And if I don't have the job, which I typically do, but sometimes she's out of town. I usually wake up at around 7 in the morning, and I usually make myself pancakes,
All right.
banana pancakes.
Ooh.
And then typically I have my first class at 8 in the morning, which is an online classes. Usually I have online classes from 8 to 12.
Okay.
And then I usually have like a 20-30 minute lunch break. And I usually make myself lunch. And then I do math and English with my father. And the rest of the day, I do homework with my mother.
Okay.
And if it's a warm day, I'll go swimming, as swimming and water's my happy place.
Oh, gosh. That's awesome. So it is actually a pretty structured school day. You've got time for your
that's right.
classes and you're learning all your things. And of course, then, iLead Exploration gives you that flexibility if you need to take a break and, I don't know, go speak to the United Nations or, whatever you do. You've got some time to do that, and then you can maybe work a little bit later into the evening. So I want to ask, we've talked about the abuse that you suffered in school and then also struggling with how to live with Tourette syndrome. We talked about how teachers need to be better educated in how to deal with children that are working through multiple diagnoses. So what would you like to ask of people? You're an advocate. What is your kind of call to action? You're here on the radio. You've got, thousands of people that are listening to you. What can the average person do? They hear the statistics you quote and want to do something to help you put an end to violence against women and girls. What can folks do?
So if you don't mind, I actually have a written call to action, if you don't mind.
Let me step out of your way.
Thank you. So, the cycle of violence against young women and girls begins from the earliest age. And the only way to break the cycle is to invest in prevention methods at the earliest stages. This means educating teachers, counselors, and parents on how to handle the bullied abuser dynamic. But most importantly, young girls out there need to band together to help each other stand up against the face of violence and abuse, to stop it before it takes root. It is our job as young girls who have a chance to make change. To make change. That is why I invite you to use your voices and be a part of a community working towards ending violence against women and girls. Join the movement with my partners at the Unite campaign with UN Women and the Public Foundation and allow your voices and others to be heard. Please reach out to me at my website at zoyakalinsky.com, that is ZoyaKalinsky.com, or go directly to unwomen.org or public.org, that is pvblic.org, to see how you can get involved. And to all of those little girls out there who may feel unseen or abused or just plainly seen as different, remember, you are not alone and there is help.
Wow, so powerful. And, you know, that call to action, it really is simple. Just, this is not okay. Be willing to stand up and say, this is not okay. And then we're going to go ahead and post those websites in the Facebook live feed. But again, it's ZoyaKalinsky.com is your website. unwomen.org.
And public.org. PVBLIC. It's kind of confusing.
Okay, so that's really interesting. So it's public.org, but not with a U, it's with a V.
Yes, with a Roman V.
PVBLIC.org.
That's right.
Okay, interesting. Zoya Kalinsky, 7th grade learner at iLead Exploration, utilizes not only real-world experiences to drive her education, she's using her real-world leader experiences to develop a safer place for women to grow and thrive. Oh, and that's not all she does. When we get back, we're going to hit on something that she touched on just a minute ago, and a lot more that this amazing young woman is doing. Stick around. I'm Matt Watson. You're listening to SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, your host, and you are listening to SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley. I'm here this morning with Zoya Kalinsky, and she's a 7th grade learner at iLead Exploration. We talked about the work that she's doing with the United Nations. Yeah, did you miss that? In the first break, we played a speech that she made on the floor of the UN recently, during her Thanksgiving break, by the way. So you can catch that up in the podcast if you missed that. This young lady is absolutely incredible, but there's even more to her besides this amazing advocate and public speaker. Zoya, you've been busy since just a couple weeks ago speaking at the UN. What have you been up to since then?
So very much, well, outside of trying to get ahead of school, just because
Sure,
I've missed
that's
quite a bit.
pesky
But
school, yeah.
I have had a couple of events that I've gone to. One of my most memorable ones was I was invited to an art gala auction in support of Pope Francis's Transforming Education donor fund. It's called Scholas Occurrentes Foundation, it was an art auction. They were selling art that they were going to donate to the foundation for Transforming Education for Pope Francis's foundation. But it was amazing, and I also met a man there who wants to sell my art.
Oh, really?
He wants to sell my art, and now I'm very excited. Now I have to draw 2 gigantic paintings.
Fantastic. So you're not just an advocate and public speaker. You are also an artist, an entrepreneur. You talked about the 2 businesses that you're developing. You're also a musician. I understand you play the piano. How old were you when you learned to play the piano?
I was around, I've always loved playing piano, but professionally I started doing it only about 3 years, maybe 2.5 years. And actually, I am writing a piece on the piano for UN Women that I want to present to them. It is a story about a young girl who was bullied. Her confidence was shattered, and she got married to an abusive partner. And she was a victim of domestic abuse and violence. And it is the story of this girl who goes through so many different stages of her life with constant abuse and and after that she was always scared to seek help, and then eventually she just couldn't take it anymore, and she left, she ran away, and she sought help, and then she became an advocate for ending violence against women and girls. So I'm definitely going to present that one because it's one of my favorites that I've done.
Interesting. So I'm going to go out on a limb, take a guess here that this is sort of well, not really a fictional piece. It's a little autobiographical, based a little bit on your experience. And then...
Even though it is a fictional piece, it happens to way too many women out there.
It sounds like a very typical experience.
It is a very typical experience for women worldwide.
Yeah, for women who have been abused, that tragically then oftentimes almost... I don't want to say seek that, but it's like you grow up being abused and it's all you know, and you kind of fall into those patterns of being abused, which is why it's so important that we work to break that cycle and empower girls as young as we possibly can. Gosh, that's so incredible. And then you mentioned you're an artist. Is there a particular type of art that you specialize in? They want you to create some art to be auctioned off?
Well, actually, the man who wants to auction out my art he only helps women artists.
Okay.
And he actually paints for ending violence against women and girls.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So, I'm planning on painting a horse.
Okay.
Not a life-size horse, but a pretty big horse, and maybe do something in watercolor, just because that is my personal favorite.
Okay, so watercolor is your medium, and
yes.
How long have you been painting?
Well, I've been painting ever since I can remember, but I basically taught myself how to paint. I took very minimal classes online, that never works. But I mainly taught myself.
Okay, so we're going to add that to your resume the next time I introduce you. Self-taught artist, author, public speaker, advocate for women and girls, entrepreneur. Mom, Dad, am I missing anything else? You must be so proud.
Yes.
Well, Zoe, actually, I don't want to steal her thunder, but I would like to point out what are the things that she likes. She really likes opera.
Oh, I love opera. I love opera. One of my favorite operas is Tosca and Rigoletto.
Okay.
Those are one of my favorite operas. As I think you've mentioned already, I'm a museum buff. I love museums. I visited over 50 museums and all over the world. And I think you've basically said everything about me.
Yeah. So, let's talk about the future. It is obviously very, very bright. And you've obviously got a lot ahead of you. You're only 12 years old. So what do you think about your future? What do you suppose lies ahead of you? You mentioned your dream is to become an ambassador.
That's
but
right.
Is there anything else kind of either along the way or while you do that?
Well, I want to study international relations and political science.
Okay.
I have a couple of options of what university I want to go to. But also for me personally, I think I want to give more opportunities to different people. Like people like me, youth leaders, the kids that want to do something good in the world but just don't have the resources, accessibility, connections to do that.
Okay.
And definitely maybe in the future politics.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe in the future politics, but that's still a very long way out, and it's a very tough game.
Sure.
Yes, but for now, I am for sure sticking with the speaking, anti-bullying programs, and possibly climate change and other world issues.
Sure. Yeah, you really taking a lot on, but just getting to know you in these few minutes that I have, I certainly do not doubt your capability of
Thank you.
Of handling all this. This is really impressive. Zoya, if you don't mind, I do want to kind of wrap up where we started, and I want to play your speech again.
Of course.
Just because it is, it's incredibly inspirational and very rousing, but it is also extremely comprehensive. It addresses the problem, the solution, and the call to action. So if we can go ahead and play that clip one more time.
Excellencies, esteemed delegates, friends, thank you for the opportunity to speak on the prevention of violence against women and girls. My name is Zoya Kalinsky, and I'm 12. I'm here to ask for investment in stopping the cycle of violence before it begins, by turning attention to the 1 in 3 girls who suffer from physical, psychological, or sexual violence in schools. Unfortunately, I experienced this firsthand. Bullied for my Tourette syndrome, I was stabbed with pencils, locked in closets, dragged from classrooms, and humiliated repeatedly when my tics were present. But do you know what a young girl feels when she's being attacked in school? It is an overpowering darkness that can consume a girl's world, leaving a shattered spirit and a dagger in the heart of her identity. It is a merciless act that drowns self-love, worth, and confidence, replacing it with self-doubt, shame, and fear. Luckily, these actions did not break me, rather motivated me to learn about the long-term impacts of bullying and what I can do to prevent this from happening to other young girls globally. What I learned is that the bullying epidemic creates a cycle of violence that not only empowers abusers, but also leaves victims traumatized from a very young age. According to a study by the University of Washington, 97% of abusers said they were also victims of bullying. 97%. These numbers mean that abusers are not born, they are made. I was a victim, but I had support, and unfortunately, not every girl does. That is why I'm here to demand action to stop the abuse that takes place in our schools and on the playground. We need large-scale investments in prevention from both the public and private sector, and to go further in teaching and educating teachers on handling the bullied abuser dynamic. I'm only 12, but while I lack experience, I do not lack the ability to have my voice heard on behalf of all of the little girls who have been victims. And while our collective voice today may be small, it will only grow louder with time. Everyone, look at me, and please remember, abuse ignores age, and long-term change starts with stopping the cycle of violence before it begins. And that starts with those that look like me, not those that look like you. Thank you.
Wow. Zoya Kalinsky, I'm sure you get sick of hearing how amazing you are. So let me just say this. As a dad who raised two girls, thank you for all that you're doing to keep this world a safer place for them. You keep it up, and we're going to keep our eye on you.
Thank you so much, Matt. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, you keep your eye on the Valley. Dr. Charisse Moore with Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley joins me next. I'm Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVI and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, your host, and you are listening to SCVI and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. We're coming to you live from the center of Main Street here in beautiful downtown Newhall. And I am joined now, so blessed this morning. Gosh, what a great show. Producer Sarah, good job. Joined now by Dr. Charisse Moore. Dr. Moore is a director of Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley, president of that organization's foundation board, as a matter of fact. And she is a member of the Board of Trustees for the William S. Hart High School District. Born in Virginia, raised by her mother for a life of service, and such amazing service she's given to our entire world. She attended Mercy High School in San Francisco, attended UCLA before starting her career in education, in which she's now spent over 3 decades, Dr. Moore. She holds a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in urban planning, another master's degree in educational administration, and her PhD in public administration. In addition to her work with Zonta, Dr. Moore is a board member of the Wish Education Foundation and a board member for Bridge to Home, a homeless service organization here in Santa Clarita. She also previously served on the California Department of Education's Adult Education Field Partnership Team and Adult Education Strategic Planning Steering Committee. You are a busy educator. Dr. Moore has worked professionally as an educator locally at the Hart District, at the state level for California Department of Education, and currently serves at the national level with the U.S. Department of Education as a principal researcher with the American Institutes for Research. She's a phenomenal example of a leader and just so inspirational herself. Dr. Moore, welcome back to Eye in the Valley.
Thank you so much. I can't believe you got all of that. Thank you for that introduction.
Of course, and thank you for your service to our schools, to our community, and our global community. And thank you so much. I see you're wearing your orange as well for
Yes.
advocacy for the rights of women.
Yes, absolutely.
So, Dr. Moore, the first time we had you on Eye in the Valley, it was kind of in the middle of the pandemic, and you were gracious enough to have a very warm and candid conversation with us. During that conversation, you talked about some of the women in your life early on who inspired you. Can you talk to us a little bit about your path growing up and what led you to the amazing leader that you are today?
Absolutely. I am happy to always believe that through stories we can learn so much. But as I thought about this question, and the last time I was here in Eye on the Valley, it was in September of 2021, and that was a definite interesting time. The world has certainly changed quite a bit since then. I was serving as a board president for the Heart District at that time, and we were working on finding our way back to better, and I believe that we have found our way back to better. We continue improving and moving beyond the pandemic, but I needed to just pause there before I jump into the women in my life to just give pause for what that time was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So back to your question, women in my life who inspired me and who helped me to think through my commitment to public service. I'll start. You mentioned a lot about me. You mentioned I'm from Virginia, and I guess I'm what some folks would call a grits, which is a girl raised in the South.
Okay. All right.
And indeed, I was born in Southern Virginia, and indeed, I would have grits on regular occasions. But I grew up thinking that my life was pretty normal and pretty regular. My mom is a huge influence in my life, but I grew up with both parents, and we lived in a middle-class community where everyone knew you, and so you didn't dare do anything that would get you in trouble because your neighbors were always there to make sure that you stayed on the right track. So when I think about my upbringing and recognizing that it really does take a village, and that saying, I'm a product of a village, but I am also a product of a mom who grew up in the 60s, and she is definitely a product of her time. She was a civil rights activist. She went to college in North Carolina, and as she experienced mistreatment and disrespect and being humiliated on a daily basis for just wanting to do and have opportunities that many would consider basic, fair equities and equalities. She wanted to eat at a restaurant, at a counter, and be able to enjoy that just like everyone else at the time. And ultimately, she and her being a part of that movement at that time, she was arrested, and she would tell me stories about the walking from being arrested outside of Woolworth to the jail and walking behind the paddy wagon and people spitting and mocking and throwing things. And through all of that, she stood strong. All of those with her who were a part of that movement at that time knew that they were fighting for something bigger and greater than themselves. Yeah. And that's kind of what I grew up with my mom's understanding that we have to do things that are bigger than ourselves, that it is not just about us and what we have right now. It's not trying to compete with the Joneses. It is trying to make the world a better place. And it was that upbringing that I witnessed her serving. She's still serving. She's still busy, still doing things. And it was also the belief that to whom much is given, much shall be expected.
Yes.
I could go on and on, but my mom is a retired public educator. She is still a public servant. You mentioned many of the things that I'm involved with, and people often ask me, how do you manage your time? How do you stay so involved? And and I say to them, have you met my mom? Have you met my mom? Because she's just an inspiration, and she doesn't seem to get tired, and so neither can I, until there's really no more work to do. We can't stop working and serving. So that is what I do through my service on the Heart District Board and through the other organizations that you mentioned, Wish, Zonta, of course, which is why I'm here.
Yeah.
Bridge to Home. It's just, we have to do that. And so I don't know how much time I have left, but I would want to also mention my grandmother's a huge influence in my life. She only had a 4th grade education, and she didn't get to vote until 1965 with the passage of the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
So through my grandmother, the reason it took so long for her to vote is because of her low literacy level. And whenever she tried to vote before 1965, she was met with poll tests, literacy tests, and could not pass the tests the way that they were being given. So she encouraged us, I have a brother, my brother and I, to really always strive to continue learning. And she would say things that, people will try and take away your dignity. They will do horrible things, but the one thing that they can never ever take away is your education. And so that inspired me year after year after year to just keep learning. And so she was able to see me graduate with my doctoral degree, and that was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to just show how she's meant so much through those words to me.
Dr. Moore, this is always why I like to start with asking you about your story and your upbringing, because it truly is inspirational. And I think a common thread throughout today's show is I keep coming back to one of my favorite songs called Beauty for Ashes. We talked to Zoya, who you met earlier, who took this tragedy of a diagnosis of Tourette syndrome and abuse at the hands of her classmates, and is turning it into a life of service and lifting up others. And you talk about the generations of women in your family taking struggle, exclusion, hate, and turning it into such amazing power, and helped bring you to where you're at, and you continually lifting up others. I know you had the opportunity to meet Zoya kind of at the commercial break. She's great, isn't she?
She's amazing.
It was a neat little exchange there between the two of you, and I saw such incredible mutual admiration between you and this 12-year-old girl who's already taking the world by storm. What does it mean to you as a woman to be able to, now that you have kind of that proverbial shoe on the other foot, if you will, where you're giving back to and inspiring other young ladies?
So first, Zoya, she's phenomenal. And what she is doing is so courageous, and she represents really everything that I'm still striving to be, and that I think many, many women and people in general are striving to be, which is to have the courage to do the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
And to make sure that you stand up for others through your power. And she's absolutely doing that. She's a force to be reckoned with.
She is.
And what she said, I don't know if you've shared the clip and if everyone's seen the clip, but some pieces of what she said in her remarks is, I want you to see me, and I want to make sure that she knows that I see her and I hear her. So she, to me, when you say putting the shoe on the other foot, it's our future. That is why we do this work. And we are in the midst of our 16 days of activism through Zonta, and this is our 14th day. We've been busy working on our focus on saying no to violence against women, and I'm just honored to get to share this message alongside someone as amazing and phenomenal as Zoya. She gives me confidence, as I said when we were talking earlier, that our future is safe, and that others will continue this work long after I'm gone, and others who are in this generation are no longer able to do this work. I'm confident that it will continue, and And one day we will be in a place where there's no more violence against women.
Yes, yes. You mentioned the 16 days of activism. The United Nations has put that call out there. Let's take 16 days from that initial launch now 2 weeks ago where Zoya spoke. They launched 16 days of activism that culminates on International Human Rights Day. But they said they want to focus on the fact that women's rights are human rights. And I do want to ask why you feel, as if the last hour and a half we haven't discussed it enough, but I want to get your take on it, why you feel it's so urgent that we focus specifically on violence against women. Why not violence against all? Why the focus this year on violence against women?
Wonderful question, and I will start by sharing some facts about the prevalence of violence against women. And I think that will help us see the urgency.
Yeah.
We are in our 16 days, and the violence against women goes all year, all the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, as we are spending our hour together today, 5 women will have been killed by someone in their family.
Right.
And just this time today. So I think it's important to kind of set the stage so that everyone understands why this is so urgent, why it's so important. So 1 in 3 women have been subjected to physical and or sexual intimate partner violence at least once in their life. This doesn't include sexual harassment, just general.
No, you're talking about violence from someone who is supposed to love them, care for them, nurture them.
Exactly.
Yeah, 1 in 3 women.
1 in 3 women.
Astounding.
Most of the violence that occurs is from a current or former husband or intimate partner. 26% of women aged 15 and older have been subjected to intimate partner violence. And when we think about young women, Zoya's age and above, adolescents, young adolescents, 1 in 4 adolescent age girls has experienced physical and or sexual violence from an intimate partner. 1 in 4. These are the students that I seek to serve.
Right.
So I'm always keeping my radar up to make sure that we are doing things to protect our young women. This number is even higher when we just think about the past 12 months. It's even higher amongst them.
Devastating.
And I mentioned that just in this time we will have 5 more women who were killed, but worldwide, in just last year, over 48,000 women and girls worldwide were killed by a family member or an intimate partner. So I could go on and on with just these numbers and statistics, but you have to think about it. This is just what's tracked. This is just what's reported.
Right.
So much isn't.
Yeah.
And so we are basing what we know and the urgency around what sadly gets reported, but think about everything that isn't. It doesn't include bullying. I know that much of Zoya's work is around bullying against women and girls. It doesn't include technology-related violence or any of these online hate speech and pieces that we can see. So it is an urgent matter. It is something that we just can't turn a blind eye to. We can't pretend that it's not happening. These numbers are global, but this is happening right here in Santa Clarita. So it is urgent.
Yeah, the need is urgent. The call is imminent. I don't know how any of us could hear everything that you've shared and not be moved to action. So I want to ask you the same question that I asked Zoya. What would you ask of those who are listening, of those of us in our community? We know that the statistics are tragic. What can we as citizens do? What should we be doing?
So I'll start off by saying ditto to everything Zoya said, because I know that she answered that question thoroughly, and she has the right answer. So I'm just going to add a little bit to what she said.
Please.
Today is the 14th day of our campaign to combat violence against women. And coincidentally, each day through Zonta has a theme and a focus that we are asked to align activities or reflect on ways in which we can address saying no to violence against women. Today's focus is community. So your question is extremely timely when you think about what is it that we want to see our community doing. I want to make sure that, for me, we launched our campaign in 2012 through Zonta to really focus on conducting an advocacy campaign to increase awareness and to fight violence against women and gender inequality. So as I think about it, I would love to see the community really rally around what is happening to women as we think about violence, to organize, to host community-wide events during the 16 days of activism. We have an event that we do during October, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which leads right into the start of 16 Days of Activism, and it's our Red Dress Project, and you'll see us at the farmer's market with red dresses and a red vest, and that highlights the number of people here locally in Santa Clarita who have died from domestic violence. And it never fails when people come up and they ask us, so what's this about? What are you doing? And we tell them what it's about, that they're shocked, that they're not aware of what's happening right here in our hometown. So for me, if I could find ways that we could organize community-wide awareness events to engage the community in their purpose and their role in helping to end violence against women, that's what I would like to see the community doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know we're in the time of holiday parties and folks are dressing up and going to those different things. When somebody compliments you on that beautiful red dress you're wearing or that nice, what they think is a Christmas tie, you let them know, no, this has nothing to do with the holidays. This is because I'm taking a stand against violence against women. But thank you very much. It is a beautiful dress. Dr. Charisse Moore joins us this morning. When we get back, we'll talk about more of her work with Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley and all that they're doing to improve the lives of women here locally and globally. I'm Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVI and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson, and you're listening to SCVI and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. We're talking this morning with Dr. Charisse Moore, Director of Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley and President of the Zonta Organization's Foundation Board, and so much more. Gosh, I really don't know how you get it all into 24 hours.
Have you seen my mom? Have you met my mom?
I have not met your mom, but I would love to meet her sometime. In fact, if you see her over the holidays, tell her I said thank you for all she does and has done.
Thank you.
So let's talk about Zonta. Zonta is international, right? Can you tell us a little bit about the history of Zonta and the Zonta Santa Clarita Club or the Zonta Clarita Club?
Absolutely. Happy to share a bit about our history. So Zonta is international. We're a global organization. We have more than 29,000 members, 1,200 clubs around the world in 62 countries. And in 2019, we celebrated our 100th anniversary. We are also a non-governmental organization with consultative status with the United Nations, and that supports our work during international service projects. And our vision, I'm just going to read it to you because I think it's powerful.
Okay.
Zonta International's vision envisions a world in which women's rights are recognized as human rights, and every woman is able to achieve her full potential. In such a world, women have access to all resources and are represented in decision-making positions on an equal basis with men. In such a world, no woman lives in fear of violence. And so that kind of gives you a taste of our international organization and our vision of what we do on our local level and in our club. And we partner during the 16 days of activism with many organizations. You see that I have orange on, and orange symbolizes a bright future free of violence. And it's also our way of demonstrating solidarity with women, and I was happy to see Zoya and her mom in orange too, with
Yeah.
eliminating all forms of violence against women. And then the white ribbon I'm also wearing. We partner with the White Ribbon Campaign as well, and that's a focus on ending male violence against women.
Okay.
So you'll see that in a part of our work too. And we have our local Santa Clarita Valley chapter of Zonta, our club here locally. And if you've driven down McBean lately, you've seen our big banner across one of the walkways there for our focus to end violence against women in Zonta, saying no. It's a big orange banner. And our club locally is going into our 50th year.
Wow.
Yes, yes, yes. So
Wow.
in 2024, we will celebrate 50 years of advocacy in Santa Clarita. We were founded in 1974 and have been serving this community, focusing on improving the lives of women and girls ever since. And we do that in so many ways. Our amazing president, Nicole Miller, has been leading us in our mission and doing that work in this last few years, and has just done a wonderful job of helping us to really advocate, inform, make aware, and provide opportunities for women and girls here locally. I mentioned the Red Dress Project, but that's one of many of our projects that we're able to do to improve the lives of women and girls.
Yeah, and the work that Zonta's accomplished over these last 5 decades is truly evident here in the Santa Clarita Valley. You know, I've often really marveled at how many amazing women leaders we have in our community. There are so many business leaders, political leaders, educators such as yourself, who have been empowered and have stepped up. It's beautiful. The ripple effects of Zonta's work are truly evident. I was going to ask, what motivated you to become involved with Zonta. I think that's obvious, especially with your profile. So let's get into some of the events that Zonta has coming up. I know Zonta was very busy in the spring and summertime. Your members, you gave out your Women in Service Award. Back in March, you honored Holly Hanlon, who also received an award just the other night. And you had what looked like a fun farewell to Luna Fest. That looked amazing. You were watching a movie under the stars. That was in May. Oh, and you made your annual award presentations in June, giving $26,000 in scholarships. So what have you got coming up in the wintertime besides your advocacy against violence against women?
So, as I mentioned, 2024 promises to be a truly exciting year for Zonta because it's our 50th anniversary. So we will be celebrating and inviting the community to join in with us as we continue to service and build on that legacy and really recognize what has happened over the 5 decades. So I invite you to stay tuned for what's to come. One of the things that we love to do is to continue empowering women through, as you mentioned, our Women in Service and recognizing Holly Hanlon. That is also a part of our role locally, is making sure that we elevate women in our community and the good things that they're doing, not just through our club, but across other organizations as well. It's one of the events that I get excited about every year as we celebrate women in our community and girls who are doing that. And I know you asked really what inspired me, but I want to make sure that I just take a quick moment to make sure that folks know we have Zonta clubs all across the country, and I actually joined the Zonta club in Burbank. And so I've been a member of Zonta for going on 15 years. And for me, it was an opportunity to align with an organization that has values similar to mine and to give back through that. So I've been enthusiastically serving in the organization ever since. And when I finished my work when my son was born and I stopped working in Burbank, I looked for another way to continue to connect with Zonta. And I had no idea, when I was in Burbank, that there was a club right up the street. And so that was just a wonderful blessing to find the Santa Clarita Club. Yeah,
and like you said, there are Zonta clubs across the world. You mentioned working to improve and empower the situation for women and girls, and you don't just work to advocate for women and girls, you also include both women and girls. I heard you, Dr. Moore, you mentioned to Zoya as she left the Z Clubs that are very active in some of our local schools. Can you tell our listeners about what Z Clubs are and the work that Zonta's doing with them?
Yes, Z Clubs are a big part of my heart, my favorite topic to talk about. We have 3 Z Clubs in Santa Clarita. We have a Z Club at Canyon High School, Golden Valley High School, and West Ranch High School. And I have to also mention that we have a Golden Z Club, which is a collegiate level club at College of the Canyons. So we truly think that to change lives of women and girls globally now and into the future for generations to come, that you have to invest in youth development and mentorship. So our Z Clubs really help our members to work to bring our mission to students around the world to stimulate new and meaningful student-led advocacy and awareness projects. And they do amazing work. They're at our secondary schools through the district, and more want to start clubs. We serve to support them and what they see the opportunities are to empower women and girls. And I will share, again, they do a variety of activities, but just today's Friday, just Wednesday night at the school board meeting, we had one of our students who is an officer in one of our Z Clubs come to the Hart District board meeting.
Okay.
And she spoke about the PAD project.
Okay.
So this is bringing awareness to some of the challenges related to access and quality of women who are menstruating, and thinking about ways to end the menstrual stigma is the language that was used. And for a high school student to come to speak publicly about concerns in that area, on camera, on TV, that courage, just making sure that our campuses have the access to materials that are needed for our adolescents.
Yeah.
It was just amazing and empowering. It's not what I was thinking about having conversations about when I was 14 or 15, at least conversations in public. You know, I might have suffered in pain quietly and not said anything to even the school nurse, but she came to the board to say, you have to do better, and demanded that action. So very proud of them.
I love that. That's beautiful. And yeah, that's kind of part of what breaking that stigma is, right? Let's get out there. Let's talk about it. It's part of our health, our beauty,
health.
our uniqueness. Yeah. And so I know that Zonta also collaborates very closely with so many. We're so fortunate to live in a community that has such beautiful organizations working to help citizens out. And I know you collaborate at Zonta with so many of them. Can you talk about some of the other work that you do with your community partners? I know many of them serve women, but not always exclusively women. For example, FYI, Fostering Youth Independence, they're friends of Eye on the Valley and have been on the show several times. They serve those aging out of the foster system. Can you talk about your collaboration with them and some of the other groups that you've collaborated with recently?
Yes, we love FYI, and FYI gives us a chance to also engage our youth leaders who are in our Z Clubs. Tomorrow, in fact, they'll be having their youth holiday party, and we are a partner in that. And our Z Clubs have each collected items. They've done drives for items that we'll be giving out tomorrow to the young people at the FYI party. We will make sure that some things that you think about with foster youth, you might take for granted that you have opportunities to have access to.
Yeah.
And on one occasion, a conversation occurred where someone had made homemade cookies, and the person said, "Oh, where'd you get these from?" When they said they made them from home, the foster child, the youth that we were interacting with, said, "Oh, wow, I thought you could only buy cookies. I'd never had homemade cookies." And so we had club members who, for the last few nights, have been really busy baking cookies to make sure we had homemade cookies for our youth partners with our partnership with FYI tomorrow. We also work in partnership with Bridge to Home, and Zonta is, in fact, one of the donor partners who we donated $25,000 to Bridge to Home to have a women's lounge, or to support sponsoring that women's lounge at the new shelter facility that will be opening in April of 2024. So looking forward to get to talk about that in the future as well.
Yeah.
And we partner with many organizations, Single Mothers Outreach, Boys and Girls Club, Child and Family Services, and just so many more, to make sure that we are there to empower women, and through empowering women, you empower the community.
Yeah, definitely. Gosh, that's so beautiful. And I asked you the same question I asked Zoya. Folks know the need to support women and advocate for the rights of women. Women's rights are human rights. I asked you both what folks can do. Well, one of the things they can do is join Zonta.
Yes.
So if somebody's listening and thinks, okay, that sounds like an organization that's aligned with my values, like yours, Dr. Moore, how can somebody become a member of Zonta?
So it's easy to become a member of Zonta. We welcome people who are interested in furthering our mission of empowering women and girls through service and advocacy. We meet once a month on the second Wednesday of each month at 6:30 is when our meeting starts. And in any information, if there's anything that has struck a chord or pulled at your heartstrings today based on what I've shared, I would invite you to join us in really fighting to end violence against women. Our website is scvzonta, ZONTA.org, scvzonta.org. And on our website, you'll find a wealth of information about us and what we do. You'll also be able to send us a message and let us know you're interested in joining us. And we want you to come and join us and help to end violence against women.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's scvzonta.org, scvzonta.org. It's got to be some women in your life that have helped you become who you are today. Step up and help support women across our community and around the world, really. Dr. Moore, I mentioned it in your introduction. You're an incredible leader, but you're also a gracious guest and such a blessing to our community. Thank you so much for coming in this morning. Enjoy the holidays.
Thank you too much. Thank you so much. And happy holidays to you as well.
Thank you very much. All right, you stick around. Big T's 5 Minutes of Fame are coming up. This is SCVI's and iLead School's Eye on the Valley. I'm Matt Watson, and this is your hometown station, KHTS. And welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley. I am your host, Matt Watson. I'm joined in studio by Engineer Andrew and Engineer Jen.
Good morning.
Thank you both for joining us, but it's not about the two of you. Sorry. This is Big T's 5 Minutes of Fame. Y'all know Big T. Big T is an executive and a philanthropist. He is an amazing father, husband, and a community leader. He is a world traveler, and he actually looks kind of like something I drew with my left hand. Here he is, everybody. He's Mom's favorite. Big T, welcome to the show.
Good morning, Maddie. Good morning, Jen. Good morning, Andrew. How are y'all doing?
Doing great. Great. Thanks.
All right, Big T. So you,
Maddie, is this our last show of the year?
Is it? No, we've got one more show next year. What are you putting in for or next week? You putting in for vacation?
Okay. No, I was just going to say I need a little bit of room and remind everybody that this is a good point too. That Big T's thoughts are not always the thoughts of KHTS, but just kidding. I just love to see Andrew put his hand on the buzzer.
There we go. That is true. As a matter of fact, I think next week, Tony, we've got the state senator coming in, so make sure that your questions are accurate next week.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right, so Big T, speaking of questions, you've got some trivia questions for us. Jen, Andrew, and I, we have our buzzers. We're going to call out our name if we think we know the answer, and then you will recognize us, and we'll go from there. But if you're playing along at home or in your car with us, you have a significant advantage. You don't have to hit your buzzer. Just shout out the answer if you know it. See if you can beat us. But, Jen, Andrew, and I, we're pretty good. I don't think you're going to do it. But give it a shot. Big T, what have you got for us?
Perfect. Hey, so we're coming up on Christmas vacation, and I know a lot of kids are going to be staying home, and Matt, the show's done a really good job, you particularly, about helping parents learn how to homeschool and other things. So I thought, Big T, I got two kids and you got two kids, all four of them are out there changing the world. Thought I'd give some parenting tips for your kids being home around the holidays?
Uh-oh.
Just real quick, there's always your favorite, Matt, the silent game. Okay. see who can be quiet and not talk first.
Right.
You can always change the Wi-Fi password daily, and they don't get it until their chores are done. Big T loves the kid that earns his keep.
I like it.
And of course, elevator practice. Just take those kids, face them on against the wall. Don't say anything. It's good elevator practice.
Right. Elevator practice.
Make them watch some old school claymation movies. That's always good.
Yeah.
And then of course the new fan favorite is the escape room. You lock the kids in the garage, you unplug the automatic garage door opener, give them a rotary dial phone, an analog TV, and a VCR, and write instructions on how to get out in cursive.
You are Parent of the Year, I think, Tony.
There's a reason why they don't live at home anymore.
Yes, and let's not forget that they're both under the age of 14 and chose independence.
Right. Alrighty. So, what was the original purpose of the tiny pocket in jeans?
Andrew.
Oh.
Andrew.
Was it to keep a piece of thread and a button? A button?
Incorrect.
Frogger.
Incorrect.
Frogger.
Frogger.
I'm going to say that Levi's jeans were popularized during the gold rush, so it was to stick your little gold nugget in. Eh, Pappy?
Incorrect.
Oh,
Incorrect. And it's not coins.
Jen, is it to put? I liked your idea, Andrew. I don't know. A key.
It was actually for your pocket watch.
Oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
We're idiots,
Sure.
yeah.
No worries. Hey, so Chrome, Safari, Firefox, and Explorer are all different types of what?
Andrew.
Frogger.
Andrew.
Internet browsers.
Internet browsers, correct. Who was the first woman pilot to fly solo across the
Frogger.
Atlantic? Frogger.
Amelia Earhart.
That is correct.
Woohoo.
The quote, "Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll," were the first words spoken on what cable channel launched in August
Jen.
of 1981? Frogger?
It's got to be MTV.
MTV is correct.
All right, and then we play the Buggles.
Like a 401k, what does IRA stand for?
Frogger.
Frogger.
Individual retirement account.
That is correct.
Hey, Tony, I know your boss offered you a 401k. Did you opt in?
No, I can't run that far.
Oh!
But bum.
Puts it on a T for Big T. Love it. What's the last name of the business tycoon behind the number 5 perfume?
Frogger.
Jen.
Frogger than Jen.
That would be Chanel, Coco Chanel.
That is correct. In what country was Adolf Hitler and Arnold Schwarzenegger born?
Andrew.
Oh, Frogger.
Andrew.
Austria?
Austria's correct. Nice pull, Andrew.
Hey, there you go.
John F. Kennedy was assassinated in what U.S. city?
Jen.
Yeah.
Dallas.
Jen.
Dallas, Texas.
Yeah. Dallas is correct. What was the name of the group that Justin Timberlake used to be a part
Jen.
of?
Jen. All day. Jen.
Go ahead, Jen. Go ahead.
That would be In Sync.
Okay.
Mickey Mouse Club.
Mickey Mouse Club.
That's true. We really, we're gonna split hairs. Yeah. You got it.
I was going with Boys in the Sink.
Nice. What was the name of the rock band performed by Jimmy Page, or formed by Jimmy Page?
Frogger.
Jen.
Frogger than Jen.
It was the Jimmy Page Experience.
No.
Go ahead, Jen.
Well, now I'm worried I'm going to mess this up. Was it Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I'm ashamed of myself. It was the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
Okay.
No, the answer to the question, no, I am not experienced. Oh, boy.
What country did the group AC/DC originate in?
Frogger.
Frogger.
Okay, that one's Australia.
That is Australia. Correct. Who was the lead singer of the 80s band Culture Club?
Frogger.
Andrew.
Frogger.
That would be Boy George.
Correct. Multiple answers for this question. What is the name that rapper Sean Combs is better known as?
Andrew.
Jen.
Andrew?
I'm going to go with P. Diddy.
P. Diddy is correct. Jen, if you can come up with one other, you get a point. For that.
Puff Daddy.
Can I come up with a couple more?
Puff Daddy.
Puffy. What else did he do? He had a whole bunch,
We'll
yeah.
keep that off the board and you guys can just keep going.
Is it
Yeah.
All right.
We got Puff. He's going by Love now.
Pity party? I don't know.
Correct.
We got one more
What name is
one more
rapper
question,
Sean-
T.
Perfect. What name is rapper Sean Combs' rapper son Christian better known as?
Frogger.
Frogger.
Puff son.
Incorrect.
Ah, nuts. I
Anybody?
figured Puff Daddy.
Andrew, Little Puff.
Jigglypuff.
Smoky Puff. Yeah.
It's King Combs.
Oh, King Combs.
okay.
All right, nice. Well, I barely
Pretty good.
snuck one out. 5 to 4 to 3 today, but I pulled one off. Hey, Big T, you blew through a lot of the classic rock questions. Save some for Senator Wilk next week. We do have to
I have
wrap.
plenty saved.
Thanks for swinging by, Big T. We also want to thank our guest, Zoya Kalinsky, and her parents, women's rights activist, 7th grader at iLead Exploration. Dr. Charisse Moore, director of Zonta of Santa Clarita Valley, president of the Zonta Organization's Foundation Board, producer Sarah, engineer Jen, engineer Andrew, Big T, and thank you for listening to the show. Remember, life is hard, but we're all here to help each other along. Be well and do good. And join us again next week and every Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. I am Matt Watson, and this is SCVI and iLead School's Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS.